Thank you. Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be here on this snowy morning, but I appreciate you all taking the opportunity to come and to listen. This is the American way, if you please, and I think it's so important. Let me take a quick moment to describe what kind of is going on in Frankfort. This is what we call a 60-day session, the long session, which includes the most important thing that we do as a General Assembly, and that's craft a 2-year biennial budget for the Commonwealth. And it's so important that that be the roadmap for the Commonwealth. I have to say that you'll hear some conversation about that budget, both for and against it, but if you really dig down deep into the budget, you'll find that we're going to hassle or have conversation and dialogue probably about only, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10% or less. 90% of it, we all agree. You know, it's one of those things that is not, it's not a big part, but you'll hear a lot of conversation about it. I think the governor was spot on, if you please, with regards to how he crafted this budget. We do have some growth in our economy, which is great, but we still need to improve those things, and we need to plan for the future with that. And how we do that is by how do we create jobs? How do we create opportunity for our young people? And I think the governor did a great job in that budget to push forward the educational system K through 12 with funding SEEK at a higher level, and also coming with the transportation roadmap, if you please, for transportation projects into the future. I think that will be a big part of it. I think the next thing I want to tell you is that for the 10 years I've had the opportunity to serve in the General Assembly and the Senate, coming over here to the GRADD meetings, we always have questions in regards to seniors, and so I think the governor hit the nail on the head when he added 3,500 new people that will be have an opportunity to have Meals on Wheels. I think the other thing that is in this budget that is so positive for people is the sheer fact that new money will be for cancer screening and for other cancer programs. And then last but not least, there's a lot of new money that will go into our local health departments. And with that said, I would again say thank you and look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Good morning, and Bill, I think your comments were spot on, you know, when we talk about the democratic process. And I tell school children when I go visit the schools that there's actually 4 branches of government, legislative, executive, judicial, and then the most important branch is the people themselves. So this is obviously a very important part of the process, and one that we really encourage, because your participation is key to promoting good public policy. The budget, obviously, these first 3 weeks of the session, things are just getting ramped up, moving along at a methodical pace. This last week, let this Tuesday night pass, obviously the governor proposed his budget. And I mentioned earlier, and I feel somewhat like Ernie Banks today because this is our second forum, so let's play 2. Ernie Banks said, let's play 2. I will tell you, humor, when you're in a political setting and humor, people have warned me, don't try. So never again. But the budget did contain a lot of good and important things. I mean, obviously, funding K-12, K through 12, the funding is sorely overdue. The governor addressed that. I support that. Early childhood development, daycare, some of the senior programs that my colleague Senator Ridley pointed out. Full ARC payment to the KERS system is important. Bucks for brains, some of the capital projects, and of course here in Owensboro, the Phase 2 of the Advanced Technology Center was identified. Funding was provided for that. So obviously there's a lot of good things in that budget, most of which I do support and embrace, particularly when we're talking about the education issues that were addressed and some of the other challenges that have been pushed to the side over the last 2 budget cycles. But along with the good, there's always some bad or some challenges. And in this case, what's been proposed in this first phase of the budget, and I mentioned earlier that the budget is like a 4-quarter basketball game. We're in the first quarter. So you can't tell what the final score is going to be at the end of the first quarter. There's a lot of the game to be played. Some of the challenges in this budget is simply that we've acquired $1.9 billion more dollars of debt. So that's always a concern for me. However, a good portion of the debt, that debt that's been identified, is agency debt. Agency debt is the way that we should go, actually, when we acquire debt, because it has a dedicated revenue stream. And that's what we're talking about with our Phase 2 Advanced Technology Center here in Owensboro, this agency debt, where we have a revenue stream to retire that debt. General fund supported debt is another matter. And just real quickly, if you add up the additional debt that we've added to the general fund, is just barely south of $500 million. So we have to be cognizant of that. I think we have to make sure that we don't overreach in some areas. We have to be vigilant about addressing those issues. So that's part of what we get in this budget process, and we're just beginning with it. The House has just gotten it. When it gets to the Senate, it'll be late in the day. We'll have to work long hours, late nights, and weekends to get that budget out, get it back to the House and in conference. So we do have our challenges ahead of us. We've passed some bills out of the Senate this past week, some of which I think are taxpayer friendly. We passed pension spiking legislation that would provide an opportunity for legislators to opt out of their pension spiking opportunities when they go from a legislative position to a higher paying government appointed position or to a judgeship. There's now a vehicle that allows them to opt it out and say, you know, we're not going to have this pension spike that has been a typical practice in years past. We also passed legislation that would eliminate the state treasurer position. In today's world, where we have an auditor and we have a finance cabinet, it's our opinion that the state treasurer position is pretty much figurehead. That move alone would save somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, I think it's $3 million initially, and then the additional savings, it's an exponential savings as we go along down through the years. We also introduced and passed legislation that would put all elections in an even year cycle. All Kentucky constitutional offices would be elected in an even year cycle. That would save counties $13 million and the state $3 million in the first year, and there would be additional savings as we went along with that. So those are some of the things that we've addressed. We passed the very first week nurse practitioner bill, which was important to a lot of our advanced registered nurse practitioners. Glad to see that compromise that was struck during the interim. It's an important piece of legislation. We also addressed the heroin problem in the Senate. It's a real scourge on the Commonwealth of Kentucky right now. The biggest part of the problem has been in northern Kentucky. It's moving our way. I think you can, ask our sheriff and our chief of police the issues that we have with that. Terrible problem. So the legislation that we passed, we're hard on those that are selling heroin, and we're compassionate with those that have been exposed to that situation, and we're going to try to treat those that have been exposed to it and be really tough on the ones that are peddling it. Those are some of the things we've done. We've got a lot of work to do yet, obviously. I don't want to take too much time up here, Bill, so look forward to your good questions. Thank you.
Good morning. It's certainly a pleasure to be here today, and I always enjoy coming to this GRADD event. We're going to get to do it twice this year during our long cycle. It's a great opportunity to share some ideas with you all and visit a little bit on what's going on in Frankfort, but more importantly, listen to you and learn about your good concerns and advice on how policy is being crafted in Frankfort. And I really want to thank Jatin and his staff for hosting this again, and for you all being here today and traversing some less than acceptable weather. As my colleagues have said, we now have embarked upon the most important aspect of our job, and that's to craft a new 2-year budget. And now we're 13 days into this year's long legislative session, and we've already introduced about 348 bills, so people have been busy. But certainly the most important job is the crafting and passing of a 2-year budget to move this Commonwealth forward. And the governor started the process Tuesday night with his delivery of the budget, and I think the budget places the emphasis where it needs to be, and that's on providing a world-class education for our people so that we can have a more talented and productive workforce. So the emphasis is clearly in reinvesting in education, and there's been some talk by my predecessors on what's in the budget. I might just quickly talk about a couple of those things. In the K through 12 arena, we're going to be able to restore money for the first time in about 3 or 4 years to things like information technology, extended school services, professional development, and for the first time in 5 years, Judge, we're going to be able to fund textbooks, which we haven't been able to do. And also one thing I thought that was really of need and beneficial, Sim, was that we're going to be able to put about over $100,000, about $100 million back into preschool 4-year-olds, being able to advance more people, avail more people to preschool opportunities. About 5,000 additional people will be able to go to preschool by virtue of increasing the eligibility and funding more of that so we can get that early learning started. In the K through 12 system, or excuse me, in the post-secondary system, our higher education, unfortunately, it's one of the agencies that's having to experience a cut on top of years of already having cuts. Only 2.5% compared to most agencies. We're taking an additional 5% cut, but we minimized that to 2.5%. I candidly hope as we work through this process that we'll be able to find a way to flatline post-secondary, because they've had about 17% cumulative cuts over the last 3 or 4 years, and as we know, one of the unfortunate byproducts of that is higher tuition, and it's horrible when kids can't go to school because they can't afford it. But some good things in there. Joe mentioned bucks to brains. We've got $500 million in capital projects spread across our 4-year universities to allow them to help advance their education delivery. I think that'll really be positive. And of course here in Davis County, as Joe mentioned, with the Advanced Technology Center, in a creative new way of using agency bonds, so that for the first time in history since the advent of KCTCS, they'll be able to use agency bonds, their own money, to finance up to 75% of the cost of their most critical projects. Ours being obviously phase 2 here and 15 others across the Commonwealth. That'll certainly make a difference in those communities. In Health and Human Services, we talked about Meals on Wheels, but it's great to be able to put more money back into child care assistance. We had to cut about $80,000 out of child care assistance out of this last budget, and that affects people that need it the most. Those are people that are going to school. Those are people that are trying to advance themselves. They're trying to go to work. They need that child care assistance. So we restored that money into child care assistance that'll allow over 10,000 Kentucky families to be able to have the opportunity to continue to go to work and improve themselves. A couple other quick things in the budget. We've got $100 million in there to expand the information highway, broadband. Jatin, as you know, you all worked on that through the GRADD region, but we still have 23% of Kentuckians that don't have access to high-speed broadband. They need that. I think the governor made a comment, we can't guarantee a community will attract a new industry or new people, more intellectual capital if you don't have high-speed broadband, but we can assure you that if you don't have it, you won't. So we need to do that, and we're putting a lot of emphasis back in that. We're also fully funding, honoring our commitment to fully fund the Kentucky retirement system. We reached that agreement in last year's session in a bipartisan way. It was the most significant piece of legislation we passed to shore up now to our financial stability and our pension plan. And we're funding that ARC at 100%, where we've just been funding it at about 57%. So we're meeting our commitment. We're putting over $200 million over the biennium into that. And then 2 other things that I'm really excited that we're able to do with this budget. We're going to be able to provide our teachers a raise. The people that are most important in education delivery. They're going to have a 2% raise the first year of the biennium and a 1% raise in the second year. And also we're going to be able, for the first time in 4 years, give a raise to our hardworking state employees, and it's a tiered approach with where the ones that have the least amount of salary will receive the largest particular increase of about 5%, and it tiers down, ratchets down to where those making 50,000 and over would only get a 1% increase, and then the second year it's a 1% across the board. So I'm glad that we're going to be able to do that in this budget. I think that's very, very important. And then I might just add, in addition to being able to find the resources to fund and make those reinvestments, particularly in education, there was some additional pain. We're having to cut, the governor's cutting about $100 million of additional monies out of agencies across the network. On top of some of those agencies heretofore have realized somewhere between a 35 and 45% cut already. So we're having to redirect the resources to where I think we can get the best return on those limited dollars we have, and that's to educate our population so we can have that talented workforce going forward and give people the skills to be competitive and raise their families and have a career. Just on a couple of pieces of legislation that we've been looking at in the House, we passed a coal scholarship bill that will allow all coal-producing counties to have scholarships for their schools. I think that's positive. It had been a pilot program that was only available in eastern Kentucky. Now we'll bring it over here into our institutions in western Kentucky that are in coal-producing counties. We passed a cyber security bill. We all know familiar with what happened at Target recently over Christmas, and when your personal identity is stolen or taken. So I think the government obviously is the caretaker of a lot of personal information, your social security number, your tax reform, health information. They have an obligation to protect that, but if it's stolen, they have an obligation to inform us of that. So Adam Edelin championed this particular piece of legislation. It's got strong bipartisan support, and I think it's a good bill. We've worked something else too on extending domestic violence orders to individuals that have a dating relationship, where heretofore it has not been available to them, only to married couples or people that are living together, but not to those in a dating relationship. So I thought that was a good bill. And then one thing that we did, and we passed this, Keith, about 3 times on our side, but we passed a bill with strong bipartisan support to restore the voting rights to low-risk, low-level, nonviolent felons, people that have served their debt to society, they paid their debt. We would give them their voting rights back. I thought it was interesting, Senator Paul is going to come to the Senate, I think, next week or the week after to testify on behalf of that bill in the Kentucky Senate. So I hope that we can progress that and let people, after they've served their debt to society in totality, to regain those rights. So that's kind of a snapshot of what we're doing. Obviously, we're going to continue to work on our side on hopefully by the first or second week of March, getting the budget out, send it over to the Senate for their good work. We'll go to conference committee, and I hope we'll be able to pass a budget by the time we finally die on April 15th. And I say one final thing is that I sense, and I hope we'll be able to continue the spirit of cooperation that started last year with the graduation bill, started last year with the reform of our pension program, where we had bipartisan support. We put aside our partisanship and put the interests of Kentuckians first. I think that's what people want. They want us to get the job done and stop bickering and stop having acrimony. So I hope that spirit will continue as we go through this session and we can deliver for the people of Kentucky. But thank you all for being here and for giving me the privilege to represent the folks in the 14th Legislative District.
Thank you. Great to be here today. It's good to see such a big crowd out on such a kind of a bad day, I guess. But as you heard earlier, the biggest thing that we do is pass a budget. And when you talk about a budget, I guess we're talking about taking the existing revenues that we have and then trying to prioritize those and make investments that help the citizens of the Commonwealth. I think when you look at the revenues that we have to make sure that when we take money that's the citizens' money, and that we need to make sure that we do it in a very fair way. It needs to be broad-based, where we're trying to get as much of spread out as much as we can, where it doesn't hit any one group or any one individual or any one business or whatever. And we have to make sure that it's done in a way that doesn't stimulate growth, that encourages people to invest money and create jobs, because that's really what we need to help our economy. But I think when we look at priorities, I view a lot of the things that we do as investments, and hopefully that's what we need to be doing. Investments are things, 54% of our budget is education, and I've always looked at education as an investment. As we know that as we educate people, their earning potential is directly proportional to their educational level that they've attained. So what that really means then is that the only way that we don't get that education, we don't get that investment back, is if we train people to move out of state. And so one of the ways that we try to keep people here is to make sure that we partner education and business communities so that the people that are graduating have the skills that industry needs. And also to make sure that the industry that we bring in are ones that are able to use the skills of the people that we have. We look at other investments out there too. Of course, roads and infrastructure are always very large investments. I'm glad to say that we are looking at, continuing. I think the governor proposed $162 million through 2020 to improve the I-69 corridor. We know that there is some bridge projects that makes that really final, but we need to be improving those as we go along. We have over 250 substandard bridges in Kentucky, and I think this budget has $500 million in making repairs on those. So those are also some of the things that we're doing as far as investments. Another thing that I'm often concerned about is that when we have really bad budget times, sometimes we make cuts that I don't always see as being good investments. One of the things that's happened is this budget restores $111 million over the biennium for child care assistance to people, specifically mothers and families that they work, but they need help having someone take care of their kids. And the worst thing we can do is to cut that where they have to give up their jobs because they can't afford child care. And so this budget does that. It's mentioned that we're adding $3,500 more on Meals for Wheels. Some of those home programs where people come out and help those senior citizens, keep them out of a nursing home. And it's so much cheaper if we can help them stay in their home than it is for us to have to pay for them in nursing homes. One thing I am really concerned about is that Kentucky, before the health care reform, we had about 800,000 Kentuckians on Medicaid. Well, the governor said that there are probably 640,000 uninsured Kentuckians, and they felt that more than half of those would qualify on Medicaid through the expansions. So what that's really going to mean is that we very possibly could have 1.1 or 1.2 million Kentuckians on Medicaid, and that's probably 25 to 30% at some point, and I'm not sure that we can sustain that. And so I think that one way we can try to solve it is to be able to create jobs and try to get those people and make investments to get those people, what they really want is a good paying job. So those are some things that we should be trying to do. I hope that we're doing those. I'm not going to say anything else. I'd just be happy to answer any questions that you may have later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's awful good to be here. And I would like to mention that we have a new representative with us. Representative Mills was just elected, and again, we're glad for her to be with us this morning. I've just been appointed here last year to the Appropriations and Revenue Committee, so this is going to be a new experience for me. We have made some cuts, significant cuts over the last 6 years, and hopefully now we'll begin to see that reversed. I think it's been over $1 billion cut out of the budget over the last few years, and that's a pretty big cut when you really get right down to it. But the governor, in his budget, has recommended that we restore, I think, $189 million in new money to the education system. So I think that's extremely good. House Bill 1 is an important bill, I feel. It actually raises over a period of time the minimum wage. And I think that's something that, I don't think any of us could live on $7.50 an hour. I just don't think that in 2014 that's doable anymore. To me, I know even people making what we've set as a minimum wage over a 2 or 3 year period, I think about over $10, even that would be extremely hard, I believe, to live on in our modern times. So it's something that we've got to look at, and I think, again, this will be some debate, I'm sure, but I think that we need to raise the minimum wage for our working men and women, for sure. From the standpoint of health and human services, again, here with the federal government had this mandatory reduction of monies here that cut, you know, the military too much. It cut our veterans, but also it cut some assistance of child care for our working mothers, and this I think is very significant. And with this budget, it would restore $111 million back to the child care assistance program, which I think is showing a lot of insight, because this would help keep some of the working mothers off of basically public assistance, and I think that we need to work in that direction. You know, a lot of times when we say Medicaid, it seems to have a bad connotation, and we've got to get away from thinking about that in that way. You know, I think we have to come to realize that health care is really something that all of us deserve. And so rather than feel like that we don't have any obligation to help our brother and sister, I think we need to understand that it is our responsibility to make sure health care is a universal right for our people. And so I think we've got to elevate our thinking about Medicaid. There'll be a lot of people that will need to be on Medicaid for a period of time, but if we're fortunate enough to increase our education, which hopefully we will continue to work on and fund, I think we can make some big improvements. Also, we've got to make sure that there's jobs available for these young people when they graduate from our high schools and training programs. Again, it's pretty hard to just go out with a high school education now and get a job that really will pay you anything. And so hopefully we'll see more and more of our kids going to the community colleges. And it's good to hear that y'all's technology center here, I think, is going to get $11 million in Owensboro. I'm a graduate of Henderson Community College, and they're going to get, I think, $3.5 million to upgrade some of their existing buildings, etc. And so, you know, we're making investments in education. That's very, very important. I will have to say this, just no longer than we've been there, I feel like that also, I feel a warmer, more congenial relationship with the other party. I think that I think we both have made some strides to come more toward the middle and quit being in the extremes. And again, I'm glad to see that relationship develop.
How you doing? I'm Jim Glenn. I'm going to wait to put my picture up. There it is. I'm a teacher. I teach full-time. I've been in community college for 25 years. What I do when people are talking, I scan the room. I look for glazed over looks. And when you're a teacher, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for things where people just don't understand, but they're afraid to ask the question because they don't want to look stupid. I have no problem looking stupid. I've completed all the coursework on 2 doctorate degrees, 2 different universities, 2 different states. I have no problem with looking stupid. Here's what I want to tell you. Agency bonds. Nobody's asking questions. This is the second meeting. I thought somebody would say, what the crap is an agency bond? What we're doing is we're allowing the community college to raise their own money to finance the community college buildings. So that OCTC will have to raise $9 million. How are they going to crap and do that? Well, they're going to add $8 every credit hour for every student until that bond is paid off. Then we're asking the city and the county to come up with the other $4.5 billion. So the total cost of the building is $13.5 billion. That's what an agency bond is. Doc Watkins gave a good talk on why we need minimum wage. When I was a teenager, I worked in a grocery store. Minimum wage was $1.25 when I was a teenager, a little while ago. Now minimum wage is $7.25. $1.25 when I was a teenager, that same amount of money in today's money is $10.50. See, people aren't looking at that. They're going, crap, $7.25 is too much money. Well, you're already $3.25 lower than where you should be. Hamburger's exactly the same. When I was a teenager, a hamburger was 15 cents. That same hamburger, when you go to McDonald's or Burger King, is 89 cents. 15 cents and 89 cents is exactly equal. So when you're making $7.25, you can't even pay for that hamburger anymore. Doc, thanks for mentioning that. We talked about the budget this past week, which is what I have to work on tonight. I sit on the subcommittee for post-secondary education, which means my committee reviews the budgets for all the universities and colleges. They have to come to my committee. My chairman told me to be prepared on Wednesday. So what I did before I left, I got the governor's budget. It's 4 units. I'll be doing this, I'm serious. I'm gonna get a large cup of coffee. I'll be doing this afternoon after the UK basketball game. Okay, because I graduated from UK. I got the road plan, which we'll be discussing also this week. The House put in roughly a 200-page House bill. It's House Bill 231. And this is what we're going to pass when we pass the governor's budget. We're going to go back and review and take some things out, add some things. But this will be our budget that we're going to pass over to the Senate around the first week of March. So we're going to be working on this for the next month. Then we're going to pass it to the Senate to work on for roughly maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks. Senator Bowen, somewhere in that general area. Just so you're aware that that's how the process is going to run. I will be prepared to look at this, the school budgets. One thing that two things bother me about the state budget. And I didn't mention that this morning. One, that we're going to cut our higher education by 2.5%. I am happy that they're raising K through 12. Don't get me wrong. That's really good. But we're going to cut higher education by 2.5%. I had dinner Thursday night with about 10 legislators, and that was the discussion at that dinner for a solid hour. We're going to try to figure out how to come up with $22 million to so that the higher education institutions don't have to take a 2.5% cut. Because when you cut the higher institutions, they're not going to take it. What they're going to do is raise tuition. I'm a parent. I sent my kids to school. All they're going to do is they're going to pass that 2.5% on to parents and students. The other place that bothers me is they're going to cut state police 2.5%. Some of you know my father was a policeman for 30 years. It's really hard when you're out there by yourself on an interstate and you call for backup and there's nobody to back you up. The public don't think about that. My father, like I said, was a policeman, and he's been put in the hospital a couple of times for injuries. You've got to have backup. You've got to have another police officer in close proximity to you. But if they cut the state police, last time they cut 20 jobs. I don't like that idea. Don't get me wrong, I understand it's about the budget. I understand it's about the balanced budget. But you got guys out there risking their lives every day. It causes me some concern. And I'm going to see what I can do to replace that money. You guys look wonderful today. You realize every day is a good day? Even though it's snowing out there, it's killing the bugs that will eat our green beans and our broccoli next summer. Every day is a good day. I'm trying to think the last thing I'm going to pass on to you, then I'm going to sit down. 2 weeks ago I was in church. I was telling the people earlier this morning. I sat on the greeting ministry in my church. And during the meeting, it was a 6 o'clock meeting at night. And they said, you know, we're short of CPR people in church. And the church I go to has 3,000 members. So he said, we need somebody in every service. We have 4 services. They have CPR training. We're short of people. So we were brainstorming how to come up with more CPR training for our people. And this is about giving you CPR until the ambulance arrives. And if you don't get CPR, your chance of living is only 10%. If you get CPR, it triples your chance of living until the ambulance gets there. I get to my office Monday morning in the state capitol, and what do I have on my desk? A CPR unit. A 20-minute videotape. There's the disc on the inside. 20-minute videotape on how to do CPR. And the box got a dummy in it. True story. I called the heart fund. It was passed out by the American Heart Association. They told me they only had 138. There's 138 senators. So what I did is I called the other senators in my building and said, if you're not going to use the CPR unit, can I have it? I want to pass it out to the churches in my district and the senior citizen homes. I have one from the Monday Center in my car, which I'm going to give you before I leave here. Just for that training. Last week I passed it out to the Catholic churches. I passed it out to Methodist, Baptist, Episcopal, Jehovah's Witness, Christian. I'm gonna be on the road again this coming tomorrow, Sunday, to try to get the rest of the churches that I missed because they had closed by the time I got around to them. I did it for 6 solid hours last week. I'm gonna do it again this weekend. I want you guys to have a good day.
Good morning, my name is Suzanne Miles and I represent Union, Henderson, and Davis counties, and I am number 7 today and also House District number 7. How ironic is that? So I'm going to stick with Lucky 7 throughout this ordeal. I'll go ahead and elaborate on to the CPR, and we did get a dummy with that, and we also have had ethics training since I've been there, so that was a high priority. I'm not really going to touch on, they've pretty well stolen any thunder I might have this morning, but you all are here, and it's more important for us to listen to what concerns you all have and questions you have. And we do have several elected officials. We appreciate you all coming out. Good to see the mayor, representative from Senator McConnell's office, from the federal level, that world, and all those good things. But if I would rather us go ahead and get into questions. I know that several of you all have questions and concerns, and we're here for you all today.